All right, let's continue on, everyone, with the notes for Chapter 18. And in this video, we're going to talk in particular about the union. If you are just starting out, it is a good idea to do as much non-union work as possible first before joining a performing union. Think of your non-union work as on-the-job training of sorts. Non-union voiceover work will provide the opportunities to get you the experience you need and accumulate some recordings of your work. One of the things that producers are going to be looking for, and casting folks are going to be looking for, is what you sound like and whether you would be a good fit for what they do. And to have a body of work that you've already done is going to give them a better idea of determining whether or not your voice and your skill set is going to be a match for them. Not to mention the fact that when you join the union, there's kind of this idea that those that are in the union are of a certain professional caliber, and to join the union a little too early, if you're not quite prepared for that type of work or that sort of expectation of your work, can be a real detriment to you both professionally and financially, as we'll see in just a bit. Joining a performing union is a personal decision that should be based on complete and accurate information from all points of view. We're going to talk some about there's some pros and some cons to joining the union, and ultimately the decision to join a union, even after you have some work under your belt, there's going to be a lot of financial consideration. There's going to be a lot of personal conviction consideration. And we'll get into what some of that all is. So the current union that handles voiceover performers in the United States is SAG-AFTRA. They're the only real players here in America. Now, there are some other unions that represent voice talent in Canada, in the UK, and in other countries. Those are listed in your textbook. But as we talk here in the United States, SAG-AFTRA is the main union that we would be thinking about and talking about. North Carolina is part of the Washington Mid-Atlantic local. South Carolina, if you go down there at all looking for work, that is served by the Atlanta local. So the union is broken up into these various locals, and they encompass various states within each of those locals. The job of all unions is to ensure proper working conditions, that you have a safe and fair working environment, whatever job you're going to make sure that you are paid a reasonable fee for your work, and we'll take a look at how you can look up what those rates are, what union scale is, to help you get paid in a timely manner, that you're not waiting weeks and months for a paycheck for a job that you did, and to provide health and retirement benefits. Voice actors and other types of talent in the industry, many times they get their health benefits from SAG-AFTRA. The history of the union: in 1947, the Taft-Hartley Act was made into law. This law gives you an opportunity to work under the jurisdiction of the union for 30 consecutive days without having to join. So one of the unique things about SAG-AFTRA is that it is representing you as a contractor, as a professional, where you're not really working for a particular company, like in the manufacturing industry or in industrial types of jobs where folks may be represented by a union, but they're working as a group in negotiating with a particular employer. In the case of SAG-AFTRA, they are representing you as you provide services for various contracts with different companies. Now, what the Taft-Hartley Act does is it recognizes that the work of an actor is sporadic, and that it's not as consistent as a worker that goes to a manufacturing plant or something like that. So that basically says that if you want to kind of try out what it's like to do union work, you can do that. And you can do your first job on a union contract without joining the union. But then after 30 days, if you want any more union work, then you do have to join the union. So that's what we mean by the term union eligible. After your first union gig, you get that union eligible status. In the industry, we call it being Taft-Hartley'd. And then if you, again, want another union job, you will have to join the union. One of the advantages of being in the union is that you are more likely to be paid a higher fee. It's what we call union scale, as opposed to if you were doing the same job as a freelancer. So the standards and the rates of pay, those are part of union contracts that are negotiated with and are accepted by what are called union signatories. Those are the companies that look for talent that have agreed to work with union talent. Radio and TV commercials are paid based on the market in which they air and how long that those commercials will air. Industrial videos, CD-ROMs, things like that, they're handled in other ways. Rather similar to what we talked about with a lot of non-union work, where you might just be paid a one-time fee. But again, there's certain standards and minimums if it is a union job. As a union member, you agree to work under the principle of what is called Rule 1. Rule 1 simply means that union members agree not to work without a guild or without a union contract. So when you join the union, you can only work for casting agents, production companies that are union signatories. You cannot accept a non-union job unless you talk to the folks that are doing that production and they agree to do what's called a one production only limited letter of adherence. That one production only agreement, or an OPO, allows a non-union producer to work under union agreement terms, but not to have to become a union signatory. So part of the idea here is that when you join the union, that you only take work from union signatories so that the standards of the industry are maintained. If you're a union member and you take a non-union job, then that is not seen favorably by the union, because many times you are going to be working for a cheaper rate of pay. The union can't protect you with the various services that it offers. And it creates a disadvantage not just for you, but for other union talent. Joining SAG-AFTRA requires 3 vouchers or 3 proofs of working in different union jobs. And it also requires payment of a one-time initiation fee and current union dues. Now, the initiation fee scares a lot of people off, because the initiation fee, as of actually just checked it in January of 2021, is $3,000. And then dues are paid after that on a semi-annual basis, based on your earnings. So it can be expensive to join the union, which is another reason why it takes some time and thought to determine if the union is right for you, and to not join the union until you are comfortable with that you are at that professional level, that you can provide union quality work, and that you'll be able to get union jobs. Otherwise, you're making a huge investment and not reaping any benefits from that union membership. Now, one thing that is possible for people to do, and this is not just from a work basis, but may also be from a philosophical basis, is taking part in what's called financial core. Since the beginning of labor unions, states would make their own laws about whether they would be a union shop where membership in a union is required to work in a company that has a union, or a right-to-work state where unions can exist, but membership has to be voluntary. Now, in both North Carolina and South Carolina, they are considered to be right-to-work states. No one can force you to join a union as a condition of employment. That's got pros and cons to it again, but it's understanding that if someone says you have to join the union, then if you're in a right to work state, that is not the case. But at the same time, in our business, if you're not part of the union, then you don't get union work. However, there is this idea called financial core. Financial core came about as a result of union members who disagreed with the way their union was using a portion of their dues for political activities. They also disagreed with the union's control over work that they could and could not accept. Some people have problems with unions as workers, as employees, because of philosophical differences. Perhaps they don't agree with the political agenda of the union, and they don't want to have to pay union dues to a union that lobbies for things that the worker does not believe in. So financial core provides a bit of a workaround. Now, here's what happens. It basically creates a non-member dues-paying status for a worker. It allows that performer to work both union and non-union jobs. So what happens if you pay SAG-AFTRA under financial core, your dues payments are going to be at a slightly reduced rate, and the union determines the portion of dues that are spent for activities that do not directly apply to the union's collective bargaining efforts. So you are only paying the union for the services that directly affect you. You are not paying to help them advance the agenda from a political or philosophical standpoint. Now, the implications of financial core are a little more nuanced than that, and there's a link in your notes to a website that talks in much greater detail about the pros and cons of participating in SAG-AFTRA under a financial core agreement. So that's something that you may want to check out. So, assuming that you're okay with the union and what it does, what it offers, what it stands for, when should you join? Well, it's generally a good idea to put off joining SAG-AFTRA until you have mastered the skills necessary to compete with seasoned union talent, because producers expect a high level of performance quality and versatility from union performers. It's not enough to just have a decent sounding voice. You have to be able to deliver, and deliver in a effective, efficient, professional sort of way, and to be able to deal with the demands of very demanding clients. Some reasons to consider union membership. Well, union membership is considered an indicator of professionalism and quality, so it would put you on the map, as it were, as someone that knows what they're doing in this business. Your performance is protected. It's used only for what it is contracted for and paid for. It won't be manipulated, edited, reused, rehashed, used out of context, all those sorts of things that if someone does a buyout of your services that, you know, they own it, they can do with it whatever they want. Under union work, generally, there's going to be the protection of using work only for a specific intended purpose that you agree to. Thirdly, you'll be paid for any time over 1 hour on first and second auditions, and paid a fee for any additional callbacks. So if there's an error that happens and they have to call you back in to fix something, or there's a change in copy or something like that, that is something that you get compensated for. instead of being expected to just come in and recut something as part of the contract. Now, one other nice thing about union work is that a lot of it earns what are called residuals. Residuals were implemented to guarantee that performers are paid for their work as commercials are broadcast. So what that means is that basically when you do work under a union contract, especially with commercials, they are generally contracted for a certain length of time. And once that period of time has elapsed, and if they continue using that piece, then you are going to be paid additional fees for the privilege of them continuing to use your voice. Now, this is based on a period of time and not based on every individual airing of a production. So there is a distinction there. Commercials produced by a SAG-AFTRA signatory generally have a lifespan of 8 weeks or 13 weeks. If a commercial is aired after that time, residuals are to be paid. If an advertiser is not sure whether the company wants to reuse an existing radio or television commercial, a holding fee can be paid. This fee, which is the equivalent of the residual fee, will keep your talents exclusive to that advertiser and is paid for as long as the spot is held. So let's say, for example, that you get a union contract to voice a commercial for Geico. And they're going to be doing a particular campaign, but they're not quite sure where the campaign's going to go, how long it's going to go. They really like your voice, and they want to make sure that your voice continues to be associated with their product. They might pay a holding fee to prevent you from working for, say, Progressive Insurance or Liberty Mutual, that you would stay exclusive to Geico and not work for a direct competitor or lend your voice to a direct competitor. And that holding fee would be paid in lieu of a residual. Now, if the company were to decide to not use you again, then the contract would end and you're free to go and you still have that holding fee that they paid. But if they do use you, then you would also, once they start airing that commercial again, start being paid the residuals that you would be due. The following is a description of the basic SAG-AFTRA performance fee category. So these are various things that can earn you a little extra coin if you're working on a union project. Session fees are paid for each commercial that you record. A wild spot fee is paid for unlimited use of a spot in as many cities for any number of airings and on as many stations as the client desires. Generally, when you do a union contract, the cheapest rate that a signatory is going to pay is when they are looking to run one commercial in one television market for one period of time. But if they want to use it in multiple markets, for an unlimited number of airings, they may pay that wild spot fee. Tags are defined by SAG-AFTRA as an incomplete thought or sentence which signifies a change of name, date, or time. So say you're doing a commercial for a certain event, and that event is going to be in a month from now. So you may record the original commercial to say that the event's going to happen on such and such a date. As that date gets closer, they may have you do another version of the spot that says the event's coming up this week or next week. And then maybe in 3 days, in 2 days, in 1 day. Every time that you have to do just a portion of a script to change the original script in a minor sort of way, you get paid for doing a tag. Demos are copy tests for non-air use. Sometimes these are called spec spots. These are basically commercials that are produced that is presented to an advertising client to kind of get an idea of whether the client likes the commercial, likes the campaign. Maybe they want to make some changes to the commercial after they hear it. It's not intended for air at that point in time. So you would be paid a little less than the normal spot rate for doing a demo or copy test or spec spot. And then if the client decides to never use that again, well, then you're done. But if they do decide to use that particular demo commercial, then you would be paid the normal fees. Use fee. This begins when a commercial airs. A standard of 13 weeks is considered a normal time buy that dictates residual payments. So the use fee is paid for that first run, and then after 13 weeks, the residuals would kick in. As far as product identification goes, it's a fancy way of saying endorsements. Radio and television commercials are unique in that they both create an association between the performer and the product. This is most common when an advertiser uses a celebrity spokesperson to promote their product. The viewing audience associates the performer with that product, and the advertiser gains a tremendous amount of credibility. Going back to the example of insurance commercials, everybody knows the voice of the Geico Gecko. So there's an association between that voice and Geico Insurance. Everybody knows that Flo is with Progressive Insurance. So that association is there. It creates that identity sort of thing where when they hear that voice, when they see that personality, they automatically think of the associated company. So it kind of creates that brand imaging for the company, and it creates steady work for the performer. Limited release productions. Many projects are never broadcast, such as in-house sales presentations, training tapes, programs intended for commercial sale, point of purchase playback, various sorts of non-broadcast sort of things, if you will. Training videos, all those different types of productions. For most of these projects, performers are paid a one-time only session buyout fee with no residuals because it's not considered to be in the same vein as a radio or television commercial. It's intended to be a standalone product that is used internally by a company for their own purposes, and that is something that they tend to want to own for themselves for their own purposes. So in those cases, you are more likely to receive a buyout fee. But again, if it's union work, there's going to be certain protections in terms that you're going to know what that's going to be used for, and that you know that the project is not something that is going to be used in perpetuity in the mass media market. So that's a look at unions. And when we come back to part C, we will finish up our look at Chapter 18.